Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Jason, and this is Steve. Thanks for joining us today for how to use call recording in Medicare Center. And before we get rolling, I know we've got the poll up. I'm going to end that and let you see the results. We've got cell phone only 70%. So that's a lot of you doing business from your cell phones. Here's our agenda for the day, and we're going to go over CMS compliance changes, what Medicare Center is, how to record calls with Medicare Center, and why that's just one option.
Yep.
And we'll take some questions. But yeah, there we go. Thanks, Angie. We're doing chat is working now. So feel free to add your questions in the chat as we go along. Chat or Q&A either works. We're going to do our best to get to all those, but just wanted to kind of put this out there. What we don't want this to be is an analysis of every special case. So if you have questions about who the law applies to, the regulation applies to for CMS, we're not really going to get into that much. So if I only sell Medicare Advantage plans on the second Tuesday of every month, does it apply to me? So we're not really going to get into that. Chances are it does.
The answer is yes. But the answer is yes.
Yeah. So anyway, with that said, let's get rolling here. So compliance changes, three main changes that are going to affect agents the most.
Without a doubt, the shot across the bow was last October. A lot of our brokers out there remember a week before AEP last year, CMS came out with this little adjustment inside their system that says, listen, we're going to be keeping an eye on everybody. And I think what they saw was a number of complaints that had just spiked last year. There were about 15,000 complaints in AEP 2020. And what they had seen in 2021 was a spike to over 39,000 complaints. And so I think they saw a little bit of the handwriting on the wall as they were getting closer to AEP. We're kind of saying, listen, people, we're going to be keeping an eye on this. Let's do it right. And then we see this directive that came out about March of this year that started to take our system, take our entire industry and kind of turn it on its head about what we had to do to stay compliant.
And there's a full moment of panic for everybody, it seems like.
And it was because again, like I was telling Jason a little bit earlier, I'm from the school that I expected the telephone just to work whenever I picked it up and dialed a phone number. I'm not a telephone expert where I can tell somebody that I'm going to record this and keep it for 10 years. And if I can even go out and find it, I depend on an awful lot of people to make that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of us are the same way. And quite frankly, Integrity, the first quarter of this year, basically dropped everything inside Medicare Center they were working on and dedicated the entire staff to put this together to give us a solution that's going to be a work in progress, quite honestly, but it's a great solution. It's a great start.
For as quickly as they pulled it together,
without a doubt,
it's amazing. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, but keep in mind it's version 1.
Yep.
So this is, again, it's one possible solution you could use, and we hope it works for you. So let's talk about the compliance changes. In a nutshell, here's what we have.
Yeah, you got to record all phone calls with beneficiaries. And this simply means that any inbound or outbound phone calls have got to be recorded, and they've got to be stored for 10 years. And you have to provide a disclaimer during these sales calls in emails, online chats, on your website. All marketing materials have to have these disclaimers. And we're going to get to that here in just a second. But the directive that came down in March was 198 pages long. And so for us to boil this down to this wouldn't do it justice. There was a lot of stuff inside that 198 pages. But basically what pertains to us, the everyday brokers, is we have to record these phone calls. We have to store them for 10 years. And then the disclaimer that we're going to be going through here in just a second. But that's the gist of it. That's the gist of it. What the government is trying to control, basically, or trying to get the whole system to kind of clean up a little bit, is this chain of enrollment, which they consider from the very moment that a beneficiary gets a lead card in their hand, or they see something on a billboard, or they see something on a website, clean to the time that signature's on that application. and they want to have a ability to go back and check and make sure that that beneficiary was not misled, that they can contain these complaints going forward. And so that's the reason for all of this. Just
and we don't like the law any better
No,
than anybody else.
no.
It's a royal pain, but we're just kind of dealing with the best we can.
But again, compliance is our friend. We've sold compliance as being a friend to us, you know, the scopes. It basically it forces the brokers to be, I don't want to say a little bit of a cut above. I don't mean that in any way, but you got to be on your game. You know, you got to know what you're doing.
Yep.
You gotta be able to connect the dots with what CMS, the overviewers are taking a look and how we handle our beneficiaries, and knowing quite responsibly that all our beneficiaries are a little bit different, and how to handle them and how to handle them compliantly. It's a skill set. It's a wonderful skill set to have, and all of our brokers have displayed that. We haven't had any outrageous complaints against anybody that I've worked with. It's been all real minor stuff that I help brokers get through. But anyway, it's a credit to everybody out there in the field.
Yeah. Well, so if you haven't seen the disclaimer, this is it. And you get used to it, you'll have to read this on every call. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all of your options. So that is going to be burned into people's brains, I think.
Websites, communications, marketing materials, phone calls, billboards. It's an amazing thing that's required. And the only exception to this is if you do offer every plan in your area. If you're in a location that's got one Medicare Advantage plan and you offer it, you're not obligated to this disclaimer. But you have to understand that even companies out there have direct-to-consumer products that you have no access to. So don't take that as me saying that you don't have to do it if you've only got one plan. I would do it. Just simply do it and get used to it.
Okay, so again, one possible solution.
There's a lot of them out there. Yeah, not the only one, but MedicareCENTER is thought out quite a bit. So
it's got some things going for it.
It really does. It really does.
Okay, so what is MedicareCENTER? If you guys aren't using this yet, if you haven't tried it out, it's an all-in-one tool. It has quoting, enrollment, CRM, call recording, and a bunch more stuff. And they just announced this coming Monday is going to be a mobile app. So all of this call recording stuff we're going to be talking about is going to be baked into that mobile app as well as Lead Center.
Unprecedented. I think this is that you and I were talking just before this started as well. You know, technology is where everything's going, whether we're an Uber driver or whether we're food delivery or insurance delivery. It is getting very, very technical. It's not ready yet. We're close. It's probably we're going to be seeing it come through, but I can sense that MedicareCENTER is going to have the ability for a broker out there in the field to turn itself on like an Uber driver to let them know when you're available. And they'll begin to send you leads to be at XYZ address at 2:00 to sell a Humana product. And you'll take off and you'll go and you'll be not out of sight, out of mind, but you'll be off their radar. The next person that's in that lead center will get the next lead coming through there. It is just going to be
and when it launched, well, it has launched, but when it integrates with MedicareCENTER, there will be a toggle switch. You can say I'm available right now. So live transfer leads can flow right in, but getting ahead of ourselves.
We are getting really ahead of ourselves, but that's just some of the stuff that we see that's coming down the pike with this MedicareCENTER and why we feel it's going to be imperative to align yourself with an organization. In the past, brokers would make sense when they said, yeah, I wanted to have my products all about, so I didn't want to be captive under one FMO. But integrity is really changing my mind with what they're building on behalf of the brokers. You're the beneficiaries out there, and they're going to receive all this technology. And the beautiful thing is the cost of this. And basically, there is no cost, but we'll get to that. Yeah, it's free to agents who are contracted with New Horizons or any other integrity partner. So it doesn't matter how many different products you have with each one of the integrity partners out there. This is free to you as it grows and builds and allows you to be the type of agent that you want to be with all the bells and whistles that you would come to expect from a world-class organization. That's who this organization wants to be to you.
Yep. Okay, so we mentioned that this isn't perfect. It's version 1. It just came out. So this is who we see as it being a best fit for. So single agent shops, or maybe just a few agents. Each agent has a direct line. And I know in our poll, a lot of you mentioned working from your cell phone. So this is a really good fit in that scenario. And each agent answers their own calls ideally. We have no receptionist here, and we'll get into that a little more later. It can work, and it can work in a lot of scenarios, but this is who I see as the best fit for this solution.
And again, like, this is going to be evolving. I
Yep.
think we have hundreds of staff behind the scenes at Integrity developing this tool. This is what's available right now. I can promise you there are things that they're doing right now that are still going to enhance this even as we go through AEP.
Yeah.
And so everybody knows what we've been talking about. Those of you that I've had carried on conversations with, and we kept saying, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, it's here, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be done working. And I don't think they're going to be done working on it for years. It could be something that's just going to be.
That's kind of the nature of
ongoing.
software.
Yeah.
It's never finished. It's always
Yep.
hopefully improving.
Yep.
So, okay, let's get into how to set this up, how to use it. And what we're going to do here is walk you through those steps, and then we're going to play a short video to actually show you a real call. So again, not perfect. You may want or need to create your own solution if this doesn't seem like a fit, and that's okay. But as Steve said, there's more features coming. This is a work in progress. So, and yeah, you're right. Everyone should stop fighting the change. It's annoying, but it's a necessary evil, if it's even an evil. I mean, that's a whole separate
I'll tell
webinar.
you what, if I could just, I'm going to deviate here for 30
Yeah.
seconds. You guys sitting in this arena today, every one of you, CMS is known for years that when you write 1,000 applications, you're going to have 1.5 complaints against you. And that's kind of been the bellwether throughout this entire scenario. When call centers and the 1-800 call Joe Namath and the Jimmy Walkers and all these other call centers started perking inside there, they know today, they know that for every 1,000 apps that they write, it's 8.5 complaints against that 1,000.
Yeah.
And it's just not an increase of 6 or 6.5, because there's probably 2 to 3 times that 1.5 people that might have something to complain about but don't.
Mhm.
And CMS can live with anything under 5%, because most of the time they might have misheard something, or it could have been human error that would have been a complaint was filed about. But when you start talking 8.5 complaints
Yeah.
per 1,000, and then the multiplier's 3 on that,
Right.
you're starting to talk 25% of the population that may have a complaint. And they can't have that. They're just not going to have that big of a population feeling like they've been deceived a little bit by either the online process or the call center process. So
Yeah, ultimately it's the government trying to look out for consumers. They have plenty of their own issues, but so setting things up. When you first log into Medicare Center, here's what you're going to see in most cases. So you're going to see a message, welcome, whatever your name is, and it's going to have a unique Medicare Center agent phone number. And this is, every one of you will have your own number. And this is something that is automatically generated based on your area code. So whatever number you registered in Medicare Center with, so in my case, if that's a 217 area code, then Medicare Center is going to generate a 217 Medicare Center number for me. So we'll get into that in a little more detail. Once you have logged into Medicare Center, and you can go up and click on your name and then click on account, and that brings you to this screen. This is your Medicare Center number that was generated for you. That's permanent, does not change in most cases. And when I say in most cases, if you move and you're now in a different area code and you're working locally, you can put in a request to have that number changed to the current area code, but you don't get to pick what the number is. But it can be changed to a number in your area code.
Mhm.
So this number down here is whatever you registered with. And that can be your cell phone, your office line, a landline, voice over IP, any number you want it to be. And you can change it as much as you want. So if you're going to your beach home and want to take calls there on a landline, for instance, you could change that to that number. Your clients never see that number. And anyway, change it as frequently as you like. Okay, and this is a little tip. 2 numbers you should add to your own cell phone, especially if you're making calls with your cell phone. The first one, you're going to create a contact in your phone for your own Medicare Center agent phone number, that unique number that was assigned to you. Put that in your phone, and that way, when you get calls, you realize what it's for, where the call is coming from. Also, create a contact for the Medicare Center operator number, and this number does not change. It's the same for everyone, 254-271-0085. And basically what happens when you make a call through Medicare Center is it connects to this operator. The operator calls whatever phone you have listed back here in the bottom field. As soon as you answer, it calls your client, and then it connects you. So you'll want to know what numbers these are being called from.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm just suggesting put these in your cell phone as contacts, and if you have a voice over IP system, put those in the app that goes with that. So for instance, we use Ring Central here in the office. I've added those numbers as contacts in my Ring Central app. Okay, I hope that makes sense.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add something here, because this is what I'm going to do, because I have clients out there as well. If someone calls my personal cell phone number, okay, my 217-855 number, and I know that that's not being recorded, but I know this phone conversation is going to have to be a recorded compliant phone call. I might say, hey, Jim, I need to call you back on my compliant recorded phone line. You're going to see a phone call coming through. So as opposed to being a spam number, they're actually going to see a number coming from my cell phone that's going to be routed through the Medicare Center app, but it's going to have my name on it. You're going to have Steve Spinner, isn't it?
If they have that in their contacts.
Yes.
But
Okay.
so, and this is one of the areas where it's not perfect yet. So a lot of cases, that Medicare Center operator number shows
it's going to
as
be in their
Arlington,
phone.
Texas.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is a chance they could see it as spam.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things just to be aware of.
Okay.
But now we're still in setup. So talk about incoming calls. So ideally, to be recorded, your clients will have to call your personal Medicare Center number. When they call that, you'll hang up and it's going to have their phone number on the screen and you can associate that or create a new contact record. And we're going to cover all this. For outbound calls, you must start the call from within Medicare Center. And basically what that means is you click on the client's phone number inside Medicare Center. It then dials your phone. As soon as you answer, it dials their phone. And when they answer, it just connects the two. So it's basically a 3-way call. Okay. So here we're going to go through a video, and this is going to show you some test calls between Steve and I. So here we go. Hey guys, so we're going to walk through testing a call in Medicare Center. So the first thing you do after you log into Medicare Center is you're going to go up here to your name and choose account. All right, now on the account screen, we have a Medicare Center agent phone number, and that is what Medicare Center assigns to you based on the number you have added as your personal phone number. And when I say personal, that could be your cell phone, your business line, a landline, whatever. And this can be changed at any time, but whatever you have in there initially is what is used to create this Medicare Center agent phone number. We're going to have Steve pretend to be the client, and he's going to dial this number, my Medicare Agent Center phone number.
Okay.
And that is going to ring. First, it's going to call the Medicare Center operator behind the scenes, and then it's going to connect to my cell phone. And it's reading him as the client a disclaimer that the call will be recorded. Okay, now here's the call coming in on my cell phone. Since it says Medicare Center operator number, let's answer it. Hello, this is Jason.
This is Steve.
Okay, so if I had not saved Medicare Center operator number in my contacts, that would just say Arlington, Texas. So I highly encourage you to add the Medicare Center agent phone number in your contacts, as well as the operator number, which we'll have in a download for you, and some information on another slide. So now that that's happened, we have this call with an agent called in. If I go to my dashboard, there is an inbound call, and I happen to know that was Steve. So what I would do is link that to a contact. And if I think he's in here already, I could search my existing contacts and attach him to another, but we could try Steve Spinner, and he's not showing up. So that means I need to create a new contact. So all I need here, first and last name, and either a phone number or an email address. And as of today, this is not popping the phone number in here automatically. So I'm just going to go back, copy this, and that is a bug that will be fixed shortly. Oops, sorry about that. Guys, that bug is fixed. So we'll just continue. Used to create. We're going to have Steve. Sorry, let me just get back to where we were. Operator number in my agent phone number in your contacts, as well as the operator in. I think he's in here. So all I need here, first and last name, and either a phone number or an email address. And as of today, this is not popping the phone number in here automatically. So I'm just going to go back, copy this, and that is a bug that will be fixed shortly, but I'm going to paste that phone number in here. And that is all that I have to create the contact. So now when I go back to my contacts, there's Steve, who I just created, and there's his phone number. And then down here, we've got an incoming call that was recorded. There's really no reason to download these, but if you want to download them and play them back, you can. But just be aware that this is stored for 10 years according to CMS regulations. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to test this, is I'm going to call Steve from MedicareCenter. And so I don't call him from my cell phone. I have to start the call inside MedicareCenter. And this could be in the MedicareCenter mobile app or the website. And so to do it, all I do is click on his phone number. And when I do that, it's going to call me first. When I answer, it's then going to call Steve. It's just conducting a three-way call, and MedicareCenter is sort of the operator, for lack of a better term. So let's try it. Click it, and script calls up, so I'm ready to read it, and I'm going to answer my cell phone. Hello? And now it's ringing, and now it calls Steve. So when Steve answers, you know, if this were a real call, I'd have to read the disclaimer. And right now, Steve is hearing a message about this call being recorded. But after that,
I'm right here.
It connects us. So then I would need to, say, hi, Steve. Hey, I do need to tell you that we don't offer every plan available in your area, and so on, so on and so forth. So read the script, and then you can close that little window whenever you're ready. And then if Steve has hung up, or if you hang up on your client, the call is ended. And so if we go and refresh the page, we're going to have a new recording. And there it is. So that is an outbound call that we as the agent made to our client. And again, you can download the call and listen to it if you need to for any purpose. Maybe you discuss something about a specific plan and you wanted to put some notes, you could download it, listen to it, and then jot some notes down in here. So anyway, that's the basics of inbound calls, outbound calls, and just getting set up in MedicareCENTER. Hey guys, so okay, I hope that made sense. Some issues and concerns that we touched on a little bit. You'll need to communicate this new number to your clients. So this is a new phone number. You might want to put it on any stationary flyers, emails, things like that. It could be potentially be a hassle, but you do want your clients calling that number, or else you'll want to take their call and then immediately call them back from MedicareCENTER. There is a chance that when they see that incoming call, they think it's spam. And that just depends. It depends on your area code and what the caller ID says. So personally, and when we were testing this, I had a 217 area code and it was saying Tallulah, Illinois. I'm not even sure where that is. I assumed it was spam the first time I saw it. And that's why I recommend putting that number in your contacts. But to get all your clients to do that is going to be tricky. And then the MedicareCENTER operator number, the caller ID is going to show Arlington, Texas. So again, put that in your contacts so you know what that number is. And then lastly, using a receptionist, if you have one, can be a little tricky, because let's say a client calls that number, your MedicareCENTER number, but they don't really care if they're talking to you or some other agent. Let's just say they see the number somewhere and they call in and say, hey, I'd like to talk to someone about my Medicare. The receptionist may not know whose number they called in on. She might just see that it's a new client. I'm going to transfer it to somebody, whoever's available. And so if that happens, that chain of enrollment can break. So they may have called your number but been transferred to another agent's line by your receptionist. So in that case, you've got the recording on somebody else's account, basically. So just stuff to be aware of. It's, again, not perfect. Let's see. If this solution doesn't seem like it's going to fit, you of course have the option to set up your own system. And in most cases, it is going to require a voice over IP phone system. So if you have a traditional landline, that's going to be a tall order.
Right. This is the voice over the VoIP is what it's
so
designed for. Again,
we use Ring Central here. That works great. You can turn on recording of every single call in or out of your organization. I've used Zoom phone myself. We've used Nextiva here in the office. We've even used Dialpad for some things, and they're all great systems. We at this point aren't really prepared to tell you how to do all that in detail, but you will need a place to store those recordings for 10 years. That's longer than I have to save my tax returns.
Yeah. And in a HIPAA compliant manner too. That's one of the hurdles. Every voice over internet provider that we've spoken to, or that people have got that they've spoken to, when I tell them just to be aware that you need to be a HIPAA compliant system as well, they make sure that they ask and answer that question, and all of them have jumped that hurdle. But I would just tell you that that was one of the concerns that everybody had about just simply going out to their provider or to a provider about with a VoIP possibility, and they can have the capacity to keep it for 10 years, but it may not be in a HIPAA compliant manner.
And it may cost extra.
Exactly.
So the storage, a lot of these guys, like Ring Central by default, I think they store calls for 30 days. It's just kind of baked into their system. Zoom, I believe, and I might be wrong, but I think Zoom, you have a set amount of storage, and as soon as it starts filling up, then the oldest gets deleted and the newest gets placed in. So broadly speaking, what you have to do to get around this is set up HIPAA compliant storage with an online storage like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive are two examples. So again, that's kind of getting beyond the scope of this, but you can certainly create your own system, save your files to one of those storage options, but it's going to take some know-how.
It's easier with MedicareCENTER because
Yeah.
if you get a request by a carrier for phone calls, you simply get a hold of us, we get a hold of Integrity, and they will make those available. That's what I really like, is we've got a system back behind the scenes there that is going to manage all of this for all of us, and when we need to
and
call that.
for your own calls, when you log into MedicareCENTER, you find out you've got a complaint from John Doe, pull up his record and scroll through the history, and there's all the recordings.
Yeah.
So
we've got a couple of questions that I do want to get to. Let's go back to a little closer to the top, because there was one up there. Okay, let's see. What if you don't have all your carriers with Integrity? Can you still pull out an app on MedicareCENTER? Right? And who's this now? Is this Maureen? Maureen, what I will tell you is that the request from CMS is going to go to the carrier that you write that with. So for example, if you have Aetna with a non-Integrity FMO, Integrity is simply going to call you, or Aetna is simply going to call you up and ask you for the recordings associated with your Aetna enrollment. And if you don't have an Aetna product with Integrity, we're not going to be able to provide any phone calls with that. If you do have a Humana and you start talking about all kinds of other phone calls, that's fine, but CMS is going to know, or Aetna is going to know, that we are not the FMO that you're dealing with. And so these recordings, I would say, are not going to be valid when you try to present them to CMS. They're going to know that, well, wait a minute, you're pulling these from Integrity. We have these over here with XYZ FMO. We want the ones associated with your enrollment that you've got with Aetna. And so it's one of those question marks that is it gonna fly? I don't know. Nobody seems to know. We had lawyers on a webinar about a month or 6 weeks ago, putting some questions just like this in front of them. And it was bubkus. They didn't have any answers. And we're going to be waiting basically on a lot of clarification when it comes to this being rolled out over the next few years. But that's the best I can answer your question, Maureen.
Carol Ann, can you call your MedicareCENTER number and merge the calls with your client and the recorded line to record that way? We haven't tested that. You could certainly try it, and I'd encourage all of you to just get signed into MedicareCENTER and play around with it. It's, again, it's free. Test it out.
I see here they're looking for step-by-step instructions. You've got these here somewhere, don't you? Don't we have them?
Yeah. So I'm going to pop those into the chat right now. So this is a link to a checklist. This is just getting set up. So you can open that file and
yeah, Jason and his team, put this together right here, folks. And I'm telling you, it's a wonderful step-by-step. I could follow it, I can do it, and I promise you everybody in this room can do it. So
yeah, and there's going to be a lot of training materials built into MedicareCENTER to walk you through this as well.
Learning Center is actually a little spot inside MedicareCENTER. There were 63 videos on various applications inside MedicareCENTER. I'm sure the video or recording phone calls is going to be in there quickly if it's not there already. I've not checked in the last day or so.
Yeah, I haven't either.
It will be there.
Okay, let's see. Any suggestions on how to handle calls coming in while you're driving and you do have an earpiece? Maureen, that shouldn't be a factor. If they call your MedicareCENTER number and you're having it forwarded to your cell phone, it's gonna be like any other call. Now, if they call your personal cell number, in that case, it's not going to be recorded, and you might be better served just saying, hey, I'll call you back.
Yeah, my first thought when I'm going through this whole process is if I get somebody calling me on my cell phone, the first thing I'm going to do is turn that phone call around. If I'm in my car and I got my cell phone or I'm on a set of earbuds or whatever, I'm simply going to pull off, get the number, call it through the MedicareCENTER mobile app, and just go about my business and handle that phone call until it's either completed or I get to my destination. Is it clunky? That's what we mean when we say it's clunky. We haven't quite got the system set up where we can make an automatic transfer from your cell phone to MedicareCENTER to begin that recording process like that. It is going to have to be something where you say, wait a minute, Joe, let me just give you a phone call right back.
And I'm going to call from this number.
Yes.
4567, you know,
Yep.
so they're expecting it. And can you go through the process of a client calling me? Yes. So, and if a client calls your MedicareCENTER number, it's going to forward to your cell phone. You'll answer it, and it's just like any other call. And again, that's if they call your MedicareCENTER number. If they call your personal cell phone or your personal office phone, then you will have to either call them back or schedule something or find a different way to record it. So, yeah. So if you need to call your client, you have to be on your laptop to record. Nope, not true. Especially with the mobile app. So if you have the mobile app, you can simply tap on their phone number from within the app, and it will call them from there and record it.
Justin writes, is there a recording of this webinar? Naturally we are.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Justin, we will send a recording out. Probably be tomorrow. It takes a little while for these to process and be uploaded.
Maureen's asking again is there a way to practice?
Absolutely.
And absolutely is correct. Just like what we were doing. I mean, you have a person in there with you, Maureen, and just go through the process of using MedicareCENTER, using your cell phone to call that your own personal number and just watch it work. I've got a sneaking suspicion once we get through this, there was a spot where Jason took us where you saw inbound and outbound phone calls.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that after about the first week that anybody's even going to pay attention to this, because even going forward, when we turn this on live from October 1 going forward, it's going to be a thing of the past because we're just constantly going to know that anything coming through MedicareCENTER, whether it's on our mobile app or whether it's through the laptop or your computer, is simply going to be recorded and retrievable. So it's going to be a thing of the past. And once we just get through that little hurdle of getting our clients used to a different phone number or getting that phone number in front of our people to call us on, then it's going to start to lose its clunkiness and it's going to become more of a everyday how to do things, how to do business. I think in a couple of years or maybe even next year, this is going to be a thing of the past until we get all the add-on, we're going to be talking about other things a year from now. So
right. Yeah, so if you want to practice, here's what you do. You log in to MedicareCENTER and you'll go to contacts and add a new contact and put in your friend, your spouse. If your pets know how to use a phone, they'll work. Whatever you want, put in a contact, first name, last name, and a phone number. And as soon as you've done that, you'll have your contact listed here. So then you can say, let's pick on Steve. I'll click on his record, and if I click on his phone number, it's going to call him. But it's going to call you and then connect to Steve. So just try that. You're not going to break anything. The feds won't come after you, nothing like that. It's painless. So put in their contact info, click on the phone number. It's going to call you, then call them and connect the call. And then try it the other way as well. Have them call your Medicare number, your MedicareCENTER number, which is right here. Whatever your number says, now this is mine, don't have them call that one. but have a friend call your Medicare Center agent number and just see what happens. And after they're done, the recording will be there. You can listen to it, see what it sounds like. Get used to it.
And ultimately, I'd like to tell people, don't worry about it, because again, 99.999% of these phone calls that get recorded are never going to be touched again. And currently, it's going to be a complaint-based inquiry coming from CMS to the insurance company back to us in the event that we need to pull these recordings. Now, I did read some language inside that Federal Register where if complaints stay where they're at last year or get higher, they may require insurance companies to run audits. And so that will not be a complaint-based inquiry. And they could actually call us and say, you've got these 3 people on this plan with us. We'd like to pull the recordings for those 3 plans to turn them into CMS. And I'm not saying that that's where it's going, but the language was inside that compliance piece.
Yeah.
So let's just get used to working with it. Let's not run away from it. I say treat it as a friend and have a good time, not to worry about it.
Yeah, it's really pretty easy. You do it once or twice and you're gonna think,
Yeah.
what this is pretty simple.
Yep.
So we have
Go ahead. No.
a few more questions. Ann? Oh, sorry, Monty. If we receive a mail out, a return reply card from a mass mail out for info, do we just go into Medicare Center, put in their info, and then call them?
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I
exactly.
would do. Monty, that's exactly what you would do, precisely. Because again, even from that first phone call, the chain of enrollment has started. If they've got that piece of mail from you and they've made a return call or requesting something back from you, that chain of enrollment has started. And basically, CMS can ask for any recording along that chain of enrollment, with the exception of the face-to-face meetings that you have. There's no face-to-face meeting, whether you're doing it at a football game. If a client walks up and says, Joe, or Monty, I'd like to meet with you next Tuesday, if it's possible, that's fine. It doesn't have to be recorded. That's great. But if you're driving home and someone calls you and say, hey, I saw you at the football game, I was wanting to make sure that we got together next week, that's something that's going to have to be recorded. That's inside that chain of enrollment that we have to take care of. No face-to-face, anything face-to-face from that beginning piece, that business reply card, clean to their signature on the application is going to be considered the chain of enrollment.
Okay, and if a client changes their phone number or email, can the recording be found later? That's a great question. So if we go into our contacts and let's say Big Bird here changed his phone number. Currently, the system only has a spot for one phone number and one email address. I would expect that to change to allow for mobile phone, home phone, work phone.
Yep.
I don't have any inside information on if or when that's going to happen, but I would expect to see that.
It has been brought up numerous times about the ability to have multiple numbers showing up from your client to be able to associate that. So
and in the meantime, what I would recommend is, let's say Big Bird changes his phone number. What I would do, I would copy it. And where are the notes? I would put in a note. Is that on overview? Yeah. So I would say to 1213. I would just make a note and thinking that in the future, if this comes into play, you could search through the notes. And then I would go in and on that screen, I would go edit and change that phone number right there and then save. So that's what I would recommend.
explain the compliant way to store these calls. Carol, I would say that if you use MedicareCENTER, don't worry about it. It's going to be automatically stored and when has the capacity to be automatically retrieved by us for you in the event of a complaint. So you don't have to actually go storing anything inside your computer to go pulling things out. That's the benefit of using integrity in some of this Medicare Center product and why we think it's a big answer for a lot of people. We're going to do it for you. Every phone call is going to be stored with our eyes watching it and be able to retrieve that at your request or the request of an insurance company. Rebecca Parr says, what is the fine/penalty for not following these regulations? Up until this year, the worst thing that I've seen so far is we had a complaint. I probably work on a half a dozen complaints from our thousands of brokers out there on an annual basis. The heaviest thing that I've seen so far is there was a 4-hour refresher course that a broker had to go through for Humana. It was a Humana deal. And so no big deal. It was, but anyway, it was simply a compliant 4-hour webinar that he had to participate with. Beyond that, I really don't have any personal experience, and I would have to go and find out what they can do. If you read inside the contracts, they basically carry the big stick up and including termination. So it can be quite expensive if we've got a lot of business with a particular company and they decide to pull our contract because of a compliant issue. Okay, these are all good questions. Will we be able to review these questions somewhere?
Yeah, we usually try to put some of the Q&A into the follow-up email after the webinar. So with the recording, we'll try to put in a few of the highlights there.
Lana asks, is there a way to turn off or customize the call recording announcement played to customers prior to them being connected to the agent? The current recording doesn't identify who is calling before saying the call is being recorded, so I'm concerned our clients will think it is a spam call.
Yeah, fair enough. It's currently no, there's not a way to change that. And the part of the reason, well, now I'm getting ahead of myself, but we've also had some people ask, can the script be part of that message that the client hears? And currently the answer is no. You have to read it in order for it to appear on the recording, but I'm not really answering your question there. Currently, no, you can't make any changes to how that works. I have heard that they're going to replace the robotic voice with a real voice, so that may help. But it won't have an effect on what caller ID says, unfortunately.
And just FYI, this disclaimer has got to be read or stated in the first 60 seconds of the phone call. And so just understand that that's some of the process that was in the federal regulations. Mm-hmm. Okay. If someone calls for a sit-down meeting, does that call need to be recorded? All I can tell you, Russ, is it says all calls. I'm not going to tell you that if you're just somebody's calling to say, Russ, I'm going to be there at 2 o'clock Tuesday. Can I change it to 3 o'clock? I'm not telling you if you're missing that phone call that there's going to be a problem, but the registry was completely clear, all calls. And so there would be nothing wrong. It would be automatically happening if they called through the Medicare Center. If somebody called my cell phone and said, I'm going to be there at 2:30 as opposed to 2, I don't think I'm going to worry about that. Quite honestly, that's me. Now, if there's anybody out there on the compliance world, I'll change my tune. But anyway, right now, I don't think I'd worry about that if I've got a known client or a prospect that said, hey, I saw you at the football game. I want to come see you. I'm not going to get that carried away with it. But again, I know all calls. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody. Every AEP, I call all my MA clients to make sure they are satisfied. It is not a sales process. Must I still record those phone calls? Jeff, again, all I can say is that every phone call, all calls. You never know what question is going to be popping up from that prospect. He could say something, well, I saw something on a banner. I know I'm with Aetna, but I saw Humana's got this dental plan. Can you tell me about that? And at that point, CMS is going to require that entire phone call be recorded. I think CMS is still going to give us a lot of latitude with our own clients. But again, all calls, all MA calls, we can't even take a chance. If I've got a friend that I play golf with and I think he's calling me to play golf, and we're talking for 5 minutes about tomorrow's round of golf. Then all of a sudden he says he went to the doctor and the doctor put him on this prescription. Is it going to be covered under his PDP? I've now violated because I haven't read him the disclaimer, which was supposed to be in the first 60 seconds of that phone call. There's no way for me to draw a cut line. So I'm just saying I would practice due diligence and all calls. It's going to be secondhand nature, I think, if we just get used to utilizing MedicareCENTER on outbound phone calls, clicking on that phone number that Jason has showed us, or in the event that somebody calls my cell phone and I know they're a client, hey, I'm going to call you right back to be compliant with the federal registry.
Okay. Re-recording all incoming calls when a prospect makes an initial outreach to a broker. The broker has no idea which carrier is going to be a match to a particular plan until the conversation has taken place. How will that work with a subsequent enrollment into a plan that is not in the Integrity Marketing MedicareCENTER model?
Again, I would say that recording could be pulled. It could be pulled. But again, CMS is going to be looking for that direct. If you've got, and say, for example, you've got Humana with us and Aetna with somebody else, that Humana could be recorded as part of a conversation that you had with this particular client that decided to go with Aetna. But they are still going to ask you, we want to hear what was said when you talked about the Aetna providers and the Aetna benefits. And that's not going to be something that's going to be in our wheelhouse at that particular time. You're going to have to go down that chain of enrollment with that Aetna product that is not with this particular FMO. And if you can't provide it, they're simply going to say, listen, you've got Humana with Integrity, and this is the chain of enrollment that you've given us up until this point, and we can buy that. The prospect bought an Aetna product. Do you have a recording that shows us that you went through the providers, you explain the dental benefits, you explain the add-on benefits, and you took care of the leave behinds? We're not going to have that for you to be able to put in front of CMS.
Okay, one more. If we have our own recording system that we use, is there any way to perhaps upload upon any request from CMS?
Into MedicareCENTER system?
No, currently you can't upload anything into MedicareCENTER. That could change, but we
don't know.
Don't know.
That could be something that they could be working on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I know that there was a number of questions or a number of scenarios that I've been part of many hours on phone calls and webinars as they've designed this, trying to find what are these people going to be looking for and how do we go about this? And literally we would paint a scenario and we would have attorneys that would just look at each other waiting for some clarification that was going to have to come down, or that they say, yeah, put that on the notebook. We're going to have to work on that on the first revision, or something along those lines. So I don't know in the future that there's not going to be some capacity to take a personal recording and move it to MedicareCENTER, but that's the first time I've had that stated. I don't know.
I do know that you can't upload anything currently in its current state.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to have to call it here in about 1 minute. Can you clarify?
Carolyn? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So she asked, can you clarify what you said about a face-to-face conversation and doing enrollment in that format? Yeah. Any face-to-face meeting does not have to be recorded. That doesn't mean there can't be a complaint based on that face-to-face meeting. CMS is simply saying that does not fall under the jurisdiction of what they say needs to be recorded. If there is a complaint based on a face-to-face enrollment, there'll be simply a set of questions that you're going to have to answer that will be of best to your recollection and go through the normal channels. As you can imagine, if we're doing enrollments on the telephone or making telephone conversation as a major part of the sales process, the recording is going to tell the story. The CMS isn't going to need to hear a he said, she said. They're going to listen to the conversation, and they're going to be able to say, does it fall this way or does it fall that way? And it's going to make their job a little bit easier. But any face-to-face does not have to be recorded, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have to answer to some complaint that may come along those ways.
Okay, guys. Well, we do need to wrap it up for the day. And appreciate everybody taking.
We
the
do
time to
appreciate
join us,
everybody,
and,
guys.
We'll send out an email with a recording and a few of those questions and a link to that checklist in case you missed it. So
Thanks for everything you do. You're the reason we're in business. We really
Yep.
appreciate you.
thanks, guys.